Welcome to the Healthy Screen Habits Podcast. We are the first generation to parent while balancing screens, life, and family. Each episode features insights, tips, and takeaways to help establish safe, mindful habits while living your family's healthiest digital life. Whether you're starting your parenting journey with a newborn or looking to connect with your teen on technology, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to the Healthy Screen Habits Podcast. In this episode, I'm super excited to be talking to my colleague and very good friend, Amy Adams. Amy works with all of us at Healthy Screen Habits. She has a master's degree in social work from UCLA. She's a credentialed school social worker in California. I wanted to just, we're getting this whole Healthy Screen Habits podcast kicked off, and I kind of wanted to give people a background on who we are and what we do, and wanted to know, like, what was it that brought you to the Healthy Screen Habits Forum?
Well, as you said, I do have 4 children, and when my oldest was about, I don't know, maybe 10 or 11, this is several years back, I started to look around and realized that I had to make some decisions because I knew technology was coming my way soon, and I couldn't just ignore it or not educate myself about what was out there. And I just delved all into educating myself as much as I could about phones and apps and social media, and just really gained a lot of awareness about, both the good and the bad that all these things bring, and wanted to be able to share that with other people around me because it's been a wonderful journey. I started out really kind of like nervous and like, oh my gosh, I don't understand any of this. And now I feel like I'm in such a great place where I have an understanding of what's going on. And that's the thing, when you have a plan and when you kind of have done the work to look into it, it's like, okay, it's not so scary anymore. So
I completely agree with you. When you can kind of flip that script of it happening to you versus you kind of, getting into the driver's seat and moving forward with intention, all of a sudden it just feels so much better.
Yeah, I didn't want to be reactive. I wanted to be proactive. And so
Yes.
when you sit in that proactive place, life feels a lot better, basically.
I agree. Something that you have kind of delved into called the 4 S's. And I'm wondering if you could break down those S's for us and kind of give us a little, kind of behind the scenes on what all the S's mean.
Okay. Yes, I love to talk about this. I call this my 4 S's. And what this revolves around is phones in bedrooms, okay? Or really anything that connects to the internet in children's bedrooms. And the reasons why they should never be in children's bedrooms. So, the easiest way to remember things is if we have some sort of like mnemonic device. And so
Completely. I think we learned that very early on in school.
we can all remember our things in biology by remembering, the kingdom, phylum, class order, but we remember that through a mnemonic device. So I thought, okay, well, this is what I'd like to make it easy for people. So I call it my 4 S's. So I'll go ahead and start with the first reason. Number 1 is sleep. So one of the biggest things that happens when we allow any kind of device into our children's bedrooms is that we start noticing that they're not getting as much sleep. Remember that these devices are designed to be addictive. It's designed to get you hooked. When we put them in our children's bedroom and expect, oh, well, when they're tired, it's fine. They'll be able to shut it off and go to sleep. And that's not really a very fair expectation to ask a child.
Right. I totally agree. And depending on the age of the child developmentally, you may be asking something that little person can't even do. So
yeah, and it's not fair to them. I mean, it's like telling your child, let's say you go to the mall right before lunch and you go into a big candy store and you tell your child, okay, well, you can stay in here and look at all this candy and you have $10 in your pocket, but don't eat anything, don't buy any candy. and I'll be right back. I mean, it's not really a fair expectation to have of our children. And, we should know, even as adults, it's hard for us to put down our phones. Imagine a young child without the same type
or
of.
put down candy.
Yes, or put down candy. Yes, both of those still apply to adults. Although in theory, our brains are more developed and we should be able to put things down. But if it's hard for us, it's even that much harder for kids. I think that's the take-home message here. And so one of the things I always ask kids is I ask them 2 questions. I say, what time do you go to bed at night? And then the second question, the follow-up question to that is, but what time do you go to sleep? Because, a lot of times.
Really good distinction. Because in my brain, as a parent, I think, oh, I've put my child to bed, therefore they're falling asleep. But I think you're absolutely right. Those 2 time frames could be completely different.
Yeah. And I think that's something we need to consider as parents, is that, we may be putting our kids to bed at 8:00 thinking, oh, they're getting great sleep. I'm doing a great job here. I'm making sure they're in their room. But if they have a device and they're using that, they may not be going to sleep till, midnight, 1, 2, 3. I mean, who knows? No one knows, because we're not in there with them, right? We go on and go to bed. So really we're helping to protect their sleep. And sleep is so, so important and really kind of underrated. I think
I've been reading so much lately about just the brain's natural cleaning processes that it goes through while we sleep, and how it can have truly detrimental effects. Even just missing out a little bit every night, or even doing one all-nighter, can have long-lasting effects that we weren't even aware of prior to MRIs. So I agree with you completely. Doctors are now being encouraged to actually prescribe sleep as a curative measure. So, if it's hitting the medical field that hard, then we certainly need to be looking at it as far as a mental health perspective as well.
Right. And really for kids, it's even more important than adults, because remember, they're growing their brains. They're trying to create these new synapses, and they're doing all this work. And yet, if they're not getting enough sleep, their brains never get the chance to do that. They don't, sleep is where we store memories. Sleep restores so many things. I mean, just think about mental health wise. Think about the last time you pulled an all-nighter, which hopefully was not recently, but
right. I gave those up long ago.
We've all done it. I think back to my college days, and there was many times. And I just think, how was I like emotionally the next day? I mean, I was overwhelmed. I was crabby. I was more irritable. I was more likely to cry or be sad. Now imagine that every single day. So every single day our children, may not be getting the sleep they need, and it is going to affect their mood. It is going to affect their mental health. And so when we talk about, when people talk about
as well as, sorry to cut you off there, but as well as our immune system. I mean, I wasn't aware of, so I mean, we've got the whole mental health component as well as this physiological component. So if you have a child who has underslept, they're much more likely to be able to get sick as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a public health crisis that is underreported, because we just kind of are like, well, it's sleep is important, but I don't know, it's fine. Or we don't realize that our kids are even up till 2, 3 in the morning. We don't know, because the device is in the room and we've gone to bed. So that's the number one reason for me, of just for their health, both physical and mental. You got to keep that out of their bedroom. So
right. When you pose those questions of what time do you go to bed versus what time do you go to sleep, like what's the hour difference that you're hearing?
It varies greatly and from child to child, but it is different. It is not the same. I can say that unequivocally, it is not the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's always kind of a shock.
So so hypothetically, but I mean, would you say that there are students that are up past midnight, up past 2:00, 2 a.m. kind of, I mean, have you heard of things along those lines?
Oh, certainly. Certainly. Because it's like I mentioned at first, it is so addicting. It is so very addicting. And it's not just because of the frenetic activity, it's also because of that blue light. It suppresses the melatonin. And so it's on
right.
levels. Not only that, our children are hyper aroused because of the content, but it's also simply because of the light itself. They've got all these things working against them. And so it really is no wonder that they are really lacking in the sleep department. And that's
so important. And I don't think it's unfair to call it a public health crisis, like what you're saying. Amy, I'm going to go ahead and stop you right there. We've covered one of the S's, but I want to take a quick break and before we get into the remaining 3 S's of your 4 S's.
Are you looking to get your child a phone, but don't know where to start? With after-school practices, meetings, and hangouts, do you want to have the ease of texting, but not the worries that come with access to internet? Good news! Healthy Screen Habits has done the legwork for you. We can take away the guesswork of what's best. Our answer is Gabb Wireless. Gabb Wireless created the phone that parents have all been asking for. It can text, but it does not receive or send pictures. It provides your child with social connections, but does not have social media and games. It looks like a smartphone with a touchscreen, has talk, text, calculator, calendar, FM radio, and alarm functions, but no internet. Setup is super easy. Plug it in and start charging. Activation is free, shipping is free, and the best news is Gabb Wireless phones start at under $100. I've paid more for some cases for other smartphones. Fun fact, the average teen Gabb Wireless user spends 80% less time on their phone than the average teen. That's time that can be spent mastering a musical instrument, developing life skills, and learning to communicate face-to-face with empathy and connection. Or maybe it's just time to finish chores and take out the trash. At any rate, it's 80% less time that you will be telling your kids to put their phone down. You're welcome. Smartphones aren't bad, they just come at a bad time for kids. Give your child the tool of Gabb Wireless to discover and learn the responsibilities of phone ownership without the fears or worries attached to untrained smartphone use. Gabb is a phone that's smart for kids. Now, even more good news, you can get $10 off your order of a Gabb Wireless phone by using the promo code HSHabits. That's HS Habits, like Healthy Screen Habits, but shorter. You can find a link to Gabb Wireless under the Tools tab on our website, www.healthyscreenhabits.org. Press and hold the tab and look for products we endorse in the drop-down menu. You're looking for Gabb Wireless, Gabb Wireless, your child's first phone that's smart for them.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Getting back into this topic of what you call your 4 S's. We covered one of them already, which the first S you covered was sleep, or lack thereof, that we're seeing as a result of digital devices being in bedrooms. What else can you tell us? We got 3 more to go. What else?
Okay, so let's go on to number 2, which is social isolation. I want you to think about when kids come home from school in the tech age, in our current digital age here, they now gravitate towards their bedrooms. They'll come home, they'll say hi, and then they'll go immediately towards their bedrooms. Now, why are they doing this? It's because they want privacy, they want whatever, and they can be in their bedrooms alone with their tech. And so what that's doing is it's taking us away from each other and putting us alone in these little, like almost like these little solitary confinement boxes, right? Like we're all together in the house, but yet we're alone. We're alone.
We're all separate. Yeah, together but separate. That's the greatest quandary of our digital age.
Right. And you know, this is nothing against kids here, because adults do the exact same thing. We're all just kind of like, we're a family, and yet we have we're like little cockroaches. We're scurrying to our own little corner. I love in the book Disconnected by Thomas Kirstein, he refers to this and he talks about how the family room is called a family room for a reason, right? It's where we gather.
Right.
Except for the problem is we're not really gathering as a family anymore, because there's no need to. You know, we're not sitting on the couch talking because we're, you know, because like I mentioned earlier, the addictive nature of our devices, we're just like, you know, grab a snack from kitchen and then hurry off to our bedroom to do whatever it is that's so enticing. but it's really taking a toll on that relationship, the familial relationship.
Sure. Yeah, because I can remember coming home from school and having that kind of period of decompression where you kind of work through the day. I know some people are more verbal, some people are less. So I would imagine some people came, like an introvert would probably feel like it was nice to just come home and decompress in a quiet format, but I was always a talker. And but that was an important period of the day for me to just be able to come home and talk about what had gone on and kind of work through the problems of the day. And so teens today, and what's interesting is, now that I reflect on it, it would seem as though kids that are doing that, they're no longer getting kind of their parents' reflection on what happened as far as like certain interactions. So there's also a loss of that transfer of family values right there. Because what they're
Right.
doing in going to their rooms for social isolation, it's kind of, that whole world of social media ends up being very much an echo chamber of sorts.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be able to be exposed to other lines of thought. So interesting.
Yeah, and we know, I mean, there's a natural pull away from parents in adolescence, as we all know. However, parents are the largest transmitter of values and support and comfort, and we're kind of removing our children from that, from
I
us.
agree. Yeah, we're outsourcing it when
We're
we
outsourced. Yeah, and I'm not, this is not to say that children never need alone time, because that's fine. I mean, everyone needs a little bit of alone time, and that's healthy. But the problem is that it's not really alone time. It's just go off in your corner and be alone with your device, but never have that kind of that community. Because really that's what family creates, is that community inside the home. And
Right. And when
we're
you're
really
on your
missing out.
device is more of a distraction than actually a working through of feelings. You're turning toward digital distraction.
Right. And, I love, I've heard it said, but that like when children come home from school, they have like a backpack full of emotion, and your job as a parent is to help them unpack their backpack full of emotion. So
Oh, that's such a good visual.
yeah, I believe that's Dr. Laura Markham who said that. And, I love that visual. And so really we want to consider that, is that's really our job as parents. We really want to help our children through both the good and the bad. And so by allowing those screens in the bedroom, we're kind of removing ourselves from a large portion of their lives. So
Right. Okay. So we've
help our
covered
children.
2 of your 4 S's. I'm just going to review. The first S was sleep. The second S was social isolation. These are all things that happen when we allow screens in the bedroom. So obviously, you're an advocate for keeping screens out of the bedroom, as
Yes.
is our healthy screen habit. And can you go ahead and lead us into our third S?
Yeah, so the third S is salacious content. So when computers first came out many years ago, they would say stuff like, now make sure your computer is in a public place so that your child is not, so that if there's inappropriate content that comes up on the screen, that you'll be able to see it, or that because it's public. Well, that's really hard now, because now all of our devices are pocket devices. So it's a little harder to say to a parent, make sure your child's screen is in a family, is in a public place, when everything is portable. So
Right. Everything's portable and everybody knows how to quickly clear a screen too. So even
right.
just the transfer from, your child's hand to yours, a swipe can be made and it can be cleaned. So
Right. And really, we do want to protect our children from inappropriate content that they're too young to understand, and inappropriate, salacious content is all sorts, there's everything from violent content to pornography, anything that is just, that you do not want your child to be exposed to. And we know that the age of exposure to this kind of content is getting younger and younger.
yeah, the last I read, it was the average age accidental exposure to pornography was between 8 and 11.
Yeah. And I guarantee
It's become a conversation that you have to have with your children. Of it's not an if, it's a when.
right.
So there's a great picture book that is called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and that is a resource that we at Healthy Screen Habits recommend for people to open up the conversation about pornography and give kids some tools to stop and turn away
Right. And really, Kristen Jensen has done, she's the author. She made an easy way for parents to have kind of an awkward, hard conversation. You know, we have her to thank for that. And we just really want to reduce the exposure here. I'm not promising you that if you don't allow your kids, you know, devices in their bedrooms, that suddenly they will never be exposed. We're trying to reduce exposure here. And so, you know, if you can have certain places where you just know that the device is never going to go into a room, into a closed bedroom where they can close the door and who knows what they're looking at. You have no idea of knowing, but if the device is not in there, that's one less.
Right. So you recommend keeping devices in public areas.
Right.
Right. Yes.
In my personal house, we have our master bedroom downstairs and then we have all the kids' bedrooms upstairs. And so the rule in our house is that no devices go upstairs. That's kind of like the invisible line. Like if you're walking up the stairs and you have your device, and you need to retrace your steps. I wish I had one of those, like, you know, those like electric
shock collars.
Yeah, shock collars. The kid gets shocked, but my kids are pretty good about it now because they know that this is real. So it's just a matter.
Well, and it's just like training ourselves to. I'm old enough to remember when the seatbelt laws got put in place. It's like now it feels completely foreign even to drive across a parking lot without my seatbelt on. It feels very strange and wrong. And I think you're right. I think what we need to do is to have your device with you in either a bedroom or a bathroom needs to feel as strange as driving without a seatbelt on or riding in a car without your seatbelt on.
Right. And some parents will say, but hey, my child is 4, it's okay. But you know, when does it not become okay? You don't get to choose when suddenly they're going to accidentally be exposed to it. So it may seem like an inconvenience, but what it does is it creates a pattern. And the earlier we can create those good patterns and those good habits, the more likely they will be to stick when they're older. And it really will matter.
I agree completely. Okay, so let's move on. We've got so the 4 S's that we've covered. We've got sleep, we've got social isolation, we've got salacious content, and then what's your 4th S that you go into?
Okay, so my 4th S is sexual predators. Okay, and this one is,
it's a big one.
Yeah, make parents feel like, whoa. So that's why we ease into this one. We talk about this one last, but I don't want you to be scared. I want parents to feel empowered. This is
right. Education leads to empowerment.
Right. We're trying to empower you. We don't, we want you to be in a proactive situation here, not a reactive. So basically what predators need is 2 things. They need accessibility and they need vulnerability. Now, vulnerability is something that, that's a whole separate issue. We could spend a whole podcast talking about that, but let's talk about the first one, which is accessibility. You don't know what's happening behind closed doors.
That device is behind a door. You don't know what's going on. You're right.
And there's a great organization out there called A Million Lives. And the woman who runs it talks about this a lot. And she just says, just cannot stress enough the risk that we're putting our children at if we're letting them have devices in their bedrooms because of this accessibility issue. And, because we don't know what's happening. A lot of us think of sexual predators and we think, oh my gosh, the guy's going to come and kidnap our children. But really, that's not how our children are getting exploited. What's really happening is our children are getting exploited through they called sexploitation.
I was going to say, yes, at Healthy Screen Habits on our Instagram page, we do a series called Words on Wednesday, where we introduce new vocabulary, and the term sexploitation was one of our words on Wednesday. Would you care to define it, Amy?
Yes. Okay. So let me just give you kind of an example. Let me walk you through what that looks like. So let's say your child has a TikTok account. A lot of children do, a lot of teens do. And let's say someone contacts them through that platform. And they say, oh, I really like your video. You're so cute. You've got great coordination. You got great dance moves. Can you make me a dance? Can you make me one? Can you do one? Can you do it like this? And here's my, private whatever address to send it to or whatnot. So the kid makes fun and then it gradually gets more and more explicit. Okay, now can you take off your shirt? Now can you take off your pants? And then they'll say kind of like, well, got you. now, if you don't want, I'm going to tell everyone you know, unless you make me another video. And so
Or I'm going to tell your parents.
or I'm going to tell your parents.
And that's the point at which that shame is coming in and the fear. And if they've already been socially isolated, you can see how all of these things compound. All of those S's are working to create the perfect storm. Hey, storm could be the fifth S.
A storm could be the fifth. A storm could be what happens if the four S's don't happen, right? So, I mean, that's the thing, is that our children, they're so vulnerable, is because, remember, really important to know, their brains are not fully developed. And so they don't have the same skill set, and they're getting manipulated by adults. The people that are preying on them are adults who have fully formed brains and know how shame works and know how these things work. And so, I mean, you can read article after article after article, and it's always the same, the same kind of story, right?
I completely agree with you. Once you've read a few of these stories, it becomes very formulaic.
Right. And you're like,
it all starts with those two things that are exactly like you said, accessibility and vulnerability.
So anyway, if we can keep that out of bedrooms, and just like with number 3 with salacious content, I can't promise you that they'll never be contacted by a sexual predator. I can say though that it will not happen in your bedroom, and there's less of a chance of terrible things because they're not in this private space where no one is monitoring. And it's
right.
So important is that public protects and private does not.
Excellent. Okay, so we've got our 4 S's. I'm going to review those. And then when we come back, Amy, I'm going to ask you to give us one healthy screen habit that you recommend that we all put into practice this week. Okay, the 4 S's were sleep, social isolation, salacious content, and sexual predation. And all 4 of those things can be protected against if we keep screens out of our children's bedrooms. Do you know what's happening during your child's online exchanges? As well-intentioned as we are, often reading every text message, post, and email is often just not realistic. This is where Bark comes in to help. Founded in 2015 and based in Georgia, Bark Technologies provides a parental control app that monitors and alerts parents to online threats towards children through social media, texting, and other lines of communication. Bark offers one of the most comprehensive monitoring packages in the parental control app landscape and does so at a very reasonable price. Bark was created by parents for parents to offer a better, easier, and more effective way to keep children safe online. Bark monitors posts and messaging for signs of bullying, communication with dangerous strangers, etc. Bark's algorithms analyze all activity and issue parents notification via their chosen communication method. Gain peace of mind and get 20% off of Bark service by using the Healthy Screen Habits link. Go to our website at healthyscreenhabits.org, click on Tools in the drop-down menu, and look for products we endorse, and find Bark. It'll be the easiest click you make all day. Peace of mind is just a bark away. Welcome back. We have covered the 4 S's of why you keep screens out of bedrooms with Amy Adams from Healthy Screen Habits. And the 4 S's are sleep, social isolation, salacious content, and sexual predators. And if that cannot be enough to convince anyone, I'm not sure what we're working for. So, Amy, I want to leave everyone who invests their time with us each week on the Healthy Screen Habits podcast with a tip or a takeaway, a healthy screen habit that they can use in their house. Do you have one for us?
Okay, yes, and it's very simple. And this is one that will leave you in the seat of being proactive instead of being reactive. And this is just kind of what we've been discussing today. Get those screens out of your children's bedrooms.
Where do you recommend they get put at night then?
You can do a docking station. I do not recommend doing a docking station where they have access to it without you knowing. So I highly recommend that the docking station is in your bedroom or your bathroom.
Okay. I like that idea of it being in the master bathroom because I know that, the notifications and the buzzes and everything else kind of go off throughout the night. And sometimes, I need to protect my own sleep. As a middle-aged person, I value every hour.
We understand.
Okay.
I've heard too many stories. It's too tempting because some parents will say, hey, well, it was out of their bedroom. It was charging in the hallway or it was charging in the dining room. You get an A for effort, but the reality is that kids, once again, the addictive nature of those devices, and kids really like those devices, they'll go to, lengthy means to get those devices. So it's
100%. I completely agree.
Make them have to, go through your bedroom, which they're much less likely to do. So don't put it in an open area. Put it in a place where they've got to walk through you first. So that's why I highly recommend your master bathroom. It's safe. You want it in a safe place.
Okay. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today, Amy. And we look forward to exploring more healthy screen habits every week as we move forward. And I appreciate everyone who invested their time with us today. For more information, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Healthy Screen Habits. Make sure to visit our website, healthyscreenhabits.org, where you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or via RSS, so you'll never miss an episode. It's free, it's fun, and you get a healthy new screen habit each week. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate you giving us a quick rating. It really does help other people find us and spread the word of healthy screen habits. Or if you'd simply like to tell a friend, we'd love that too. I so appreciate you spending your time with me this week, and I look forward to learning more healthy habits together.